She didn't just park across my driveway. She positioned her gleaming white Escalade like she was claiming territory in a war zone I didn't know existed. Before I could even kill the engine of my moving truck, the front door of the neighboring McMansion flew open and out marched the Queen of Willow Creek Estates herself, clipboard clutched like a holy relic, eyes narrowing at me as if I'd personally offended her bloodline. "You can't park there," she snapped, voice dripping with that fake polite venom only true Karens master. "This is a regulated community." I stared at her for a second, the October sun beating down on this picture-perfect suburban hell. "This is my house," I said, gesturing behind me to Aunt Louise's old two-story with its peeling paint and defiant character among the sea of identical beige clones. The woman, mid-50s, blonde ponytail so tight it looked painful, cream cardigan over slacks that screamed, "I enforce rules for fun," tilted her head. "That's Louise Whitmore's property. And Louise passed away 3 weeks ago. So unless you have some very good explanation, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security." Security? In a neighborhood where the biggest crime was someone planting the wrong color petunias. Her name was Pamela Whitaker, Pam to her loyal subjects, as I would soon learn, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association for 12 glorious years of tyranny disguised as community standards. Bless her heart, she thought her clipboard was the Constitution, and her beige paint swatches were the 10 Commandments. That was her first mistake. Assuming I was some random squatter. Her second? Not realizing I'd spent the last decade as a forensic accountant who specialized in spotting patterns of corporate bullshit. Patterns just like the one she'd been running on my aunt for 15 years. I'd been slandered and run out of my last job for calling out cooked books. The company painted me as the thief while they pocketed millions. I knew how to stay quiet, watch, and strike when the evidence was ironclad. People like Pam never see the quiet ones coming. They think silence means weakness. I kept my voice calm. "I'm Ryan Keller. Louise was my aunt. She left me the house." Pam's smile was the kind that never touched her eyes. "Oh, how lovely. Well, Ryan, while you're here we really should discuss some compliance issues. That paint color is definitely not on the approved list. The fence is 2 inches over regulation height. And don't get me started on the lawn. It's practically a jungle. Standards are standards, dear. One non-conforming home drags down everyone's property values. My aunt had been dead 3 weeks. The grass hadn't been my priority while handling probate and the funeral she'd planned down to the last hymn. But standards were standards apparently even for the grieving. I pointed at her Escalade. "Mind moving your car? It's blocking my driveway." She waved a hand like I was a minor inconvenience. "I'll get to it when I'm finished with my rounds, dear. Now about those violations." She actually started ticking them off on her clipboard. Right there in my driveway like she was delivering a sermon. "We'll need a color sample approved by the board. And that porch swing? Not on the aesthetic guidelines. I'll send the formal notice by tomorrow." I watched her stroll back to her palace next door. Hips swinging with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Her vanity plate read "Shahoon." Of course it did. Through the kitchen window I could see her already on the phone, laughing, probably telling the board about the new problem that had just rolled into town. Inside, the house smelled exactly like I remembered, lavender sachets, old books, and the faint vanilla from Aunt Louise's endless baking. The living room was frozen in 1952. Overstuffed armchair, crocheted afghans, shelves of paperback romances. On the mantel sat photos of me at 12, holding up a catfish from the pond out back. She'd made this place my sanctuary when my parents' divorce turned the world upside down. Now it was mine, and some clipboard-wielding tyrant thought she could polish it into beige oblivion. That's when I found the box. Tucked in the bedroom closet behind winter coats, a cardboard file labeled HOA nonsense, in Aunt Louise's neat handwriting. I carried it to the kitchen table and started reading. Dozens of violation notices dating back 15 years. Paint non-compliant. Fence too tall. Lawn too long. Mailbox aesthetically displeasing. Fines that added up to over $12,000. At the bottom, a yellowed letter from a lawyer dated 2015. The property was built in 1952. 46 years before the subdivision and HOA even existed. Grandfathered. Exempt. They had zero legal authority. Aunt Louise had known. She'd paid every single fine anyway. Quietly. Without a fuss. Because fighting would have cost her peace, and peace was all she had left in her final years. I sat there staring out the window at Pam's Escalade still parked like a middle finger in my driveway. She was on her porch now, watering flowers that were probably color-approved by the board. "How long did you let them do this to you?" I asked the empty room. No answer. But staring at that box of harassment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning the official notice arrived. White envelope, red violation stamp. Unregistered vehicle on property. $200 fine. Due in 14 days or lien placed. I looked at my truck sitting legally in my own driveway and laughed out loud. They were fining me for existing. I spent the afternoon confirming everything at the county clerk's office. Deed from 1952. Plat map showing the house outside the subdivision boundaries. Tax records proving separate parcel. The HOA management company receptionist actually laughed when I gave the address. "Sir, that property isn't even in our system." I hung up before she could ask why I was calling. Pam didn't need a heads up. Not yet. Back home I walked next door with the notice in hand. Pam answered on the second knock, same cardigan, same clipboard. "Mr. Keller, what can I do for you?" I held up the paper. "A fine for parking my vehicle on my own property." She nodded like a kindergarten teacher explaining why crayons must stay inside the lines. "All vehicles must be registered with the HOA, it's in the bylaws. This house isn't part of the HOA, it's grandfathered." "I have documentation." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, then annoyance, but she recovered with a smile colder than the October air. "I don't care what old paperwork says. You live in this community now. You benefit from our standards. The least you can do is follow the rules." She stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "I've run this neighborhood for 12 years. I know everyone who matters. I can make your life here very uncomfortable." I didn't blink. "I'm sure you can try." She laughed, short and dismissive. "Your aunt tried once. Sent some lawyer letter. Thought that would change things. You know what changed? Nothing. She still got the notices. She still paid." Pam's eyes glittered. "You'll learn the same thing." There it was. Confirmation she'd known the whole time. Known the fines were fake. Sent them anyway. This wasn't ignorance, it was a strategy. Wear people down until compliance felt easier than breathing. Bank on the fact that most folks just want to be left alone. Aunt Louise hadn't fought back. Pam was betting I wouldn't either. I tore the notice in half right in front of her and dropped the pieces on her perfect lawn. "I won't be paying. And I'd suggest you stop sending them." Her smile never wavered. "We'll see about that, Mr. Keller. People always say they'll fight. They never do." She closed the door in my face with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than a slam. That night I bought 3 security cameras, motion-activated, night vision, cloud backup. I mounted them myself under cover of darkness. One at the front, one on the garage, one aimed straight at the driveway. If Pam wanted to play games, every move would be recorded in 4K glory. Her Escalade sat in the same spot, still blocking half my access. The cameras caught it all. She thought she knew how this worked. Thought she'd outlast me the way she'd outlasted Aunt Louise. But Louise wasn't building a case. I was. 3 days later the neighborhood turned into a ghost town around me. The lady walking her poodle crossed the street when she saw me coming. The guy washing his car suddenly became fascinated with his tire tread. Nobody waved. Nobody made eye contact. In a place where Aunt Louise had lived 40 years, I'd become the invisible plague overnight. The only exception was old Mr. Tom Reynolds at the end of the block, 78, white beard, porch full of wind chimes that sang every breeze. On the 4th morning he was waiting at my driveway with 2 steaming mugs. "You're Louise's nephew," he said, not a question. "And you're the only one willing to talk to me." He chuckled dryly. "That's because I'm too old to care what Pam thinks. Come have coffee. There are things you should know." His kitchen smelled like pipe tobacco and instant Folgers. He slid a mug across the table. Louise was my friend. When Pam took over the HOA 12 years ago, she made it her mission to break your aunt. Notices every month. Fines she couldn't afford. Rumors at board meetings that Louise was senile, letting the place fall apart. Your aunt died with 12 grand in fees paid to people who had no legal right to a single dime. Money she could have used for her medication. Tom leaned forward, eyes sharp. Pam knew the house was grandfathered. She didn't care. And now she's telling everyone you're not really Louise's nephew, that you forged the papers. Posted it in the community chat yesterday. 43 likes already. He showed me his phone. Pam's smiling profile picture above the post. Community alert. The individual claiming Louise Whitmore's property has not provided verified documentation. Until his claims are authenticated, please exercise caution. The comments were a festival of suburban paranoia. He looks shady. Remember that accountant scandal a few years back? Same guy. They didn't need evidence. They had Pam's word, and that was gospel. I handed the phone back, feeling the old familiar burn of being slandered again. Same script, different stage. Why tell me? Because Louise deserved better. Pam's done this to 3 others before you. 2 sold and ran. 1 fought and lost everything in legal fees. Tom met my eyes. I'm too old to fight her. You're not. And something tells me you won't run. Back home I opened my laptop and started the file. Willow Creek evidence. Deed. Lawyer letter. County records. Screenshots of Pam's post. Camera footage already showing her Escalade parked in the same spot for 72 straight hours. I logged every violation notice, every lie. Harassment. Defamation. Fraud. Trespass. 3 categories, 3 potential charges. All I needed was enough rope for Pam to hang herself with. She kept providing it. The next morning my truck was still legally parked when a black Ford F-250 rolled up at 3:17 a.m. Headlights off, driver wearing a baseball cap turned away from the camera like he knew exactly where the lenses were. He parked inches from my bumper, blocking me in completely. Then he strolled down the street toward Pam's house. At 6:47 a.m. I stepped onto the porch to find Pam standing at the edge of my property with 3 neighborhood enforcers, arms crossed, faces set in righteous indignation. "Good morning, Ryan," she called cheerfully. "We noticed your vehicle doesn't have an HOA registration sticker. Violation of Section 12, Paragraph 4. Kevin here is assisting with compliance inspection." Kevin, the insurance salesman from down the block, stepped forward like he was doing God's work. "Brenda says different." I kept my tone even. "This property isn't part of the HOA, I've explained this. And your truck is parked on private property without permission. That's trespassing." Pam checked her watch with theatrical flair. "We've contacted a tow service. 30 minutes until they arrive." Tick-tock. I almost laughed. Almost told them right then who I really was, the guy who'd spent years building fraud cases that sent executives to prison. But badges and titles aren't magic. They create martyrs. I wanted Pam to keep digging her own grave deeper. So I waited on my porch, arms crossed, while the tow truck rumbled up 15 minutes later. The driver, a no-nonsense guy named Martinez, took one look at the scene and shook his head. "Ma'am, I can't tow from private property without owner authorization or a police order. HOA doesn't count here." Pam's smile tightened. "I'm the president. I'm authorizing." Martinez squinted at me, then did a double take. "Wait, Ryan Keller? The forensic accountant who took down those executives at Meridian Finance a couple years back? The one they tried to frame." The silence that followed was delicious. Pam's face drained of color. Kevin and his backup dancer suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. Martinez grinned. "Man, I followed that case. You were the good guy." He turned to Pam. "No tow for his truck. But that black pickup? Parked without permission since 3 a.m. I can take that one if the owner wants." Kevin practically sprinted to move his truck, tires screeching. Pam stood frozen, clipboard hanging limp. I finally spoke. "We need to talk. But not here. I'd suggest you speak with a lawyer before our next conversation." She turned and walked away without a word. But I saw her hands shaking. The cameras caught every second. 14 days later the mob showed up. 15 neighbors gathered at the end of my driveway, Pam front and center. Escalade parked exactly where this nightmare began. She held her clipboard like a shield. "Mr. Keller," she announced, voice carrying the weight of fake authority, "the community has voted. You have 30 days to bring the property into compliance, or we'll file a lien for $14,600 in outstanding fines." I stepped off the porch and let the silence stretch just long enough for discomfort. Then I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the folder, loud enough for everyone to hear. This property was built in 1952. Your HOA formed in 1998. County records, deed, tax parcel. All confirm it's exempt. Every notice you sent my aunt? Fraudulent. Every dollar she paid? Extortion. I turned the screen so the crowd could see the footage. Pam's car blocking me for weeks. The 3 a.m. truck drop. Her post calling me a fraud. 14 days of video. 15 years of harassment. Witness statements. Your own management company confirming the address isn't even in the system. I looked straight at Pam. Harassment. Defamation. Fraud. Trespass. All documented. The only question is how much worse you want to make it. Murmurs rippled. Someone whispered, "Is that true?" Pam's face went ghost white. "This is a civil matter," she sputtered. "You have no jurisdiction." "You're right," I said calmly. "So I'm not arresting you." I dialed the county sheriff's non-emergency line. The one I'd already prepped with the full file. "Deputies are on the way." 15 minutes. The crowd melted like ice cream in July. Within 5 minutes only Pam remained, clutching her clipboard like a life raft. Deputy Reyes arrived in 12, took one look at my evidence folder and turned to Pam. "Ma'am, move your vehicle. Now." And I'd strongly suggest an attorney. Pam fumbled for her keys, rattled. She reversed too fast, bumper crunching into my mailbox post, then overcorrected straight onto my lawn, tires tearing perfect divots in the grass. Deputy Reyes unclipped her radio. "Ma'am, stop the vehicle. You're under citizen's arrest for criminal trespass and property damage." The same Martinez tow truck arrived 20 minutes later. He hooked up Pam's precious Hacun Escalade while she sat on the curb crying real tears. No performance, just the sound of a bully watching her kingdom collapse. "Karma," Martinez muttered as the flatbed rolled away. The charges stuck. Misdemeanor harassment, fraud, trespassing. Pam took a plea: 2 years probation, $2,000 fines, 200 hours community service, and $6,000 restitution to my aunt's estate. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove her the next week. Her house went on the market 6 weeks later. She and her husband moved out in the middle of the night. Spring came. I repainted the porch the exact white Aunt Louise loved. Tom Reynolds became a regular Sunday coffee guest. Wind chimed singing while we watched the new young family next door. Sarah, Mike, and their toddler Emma turned Pam's old kingdom into something human again. Emma decided my yard was the best for chasing butterflies. One quiet evening I found an unsigned note in the mailbox on Pam's old stationery. "I'm sorry." Shaky handwriting. I placed it on top of the old violation box and closed the lid. Some apologies come too late to fix anything. But they complete the story. I kept the house exactly as Aunt Louise hoped. Alive, imperfect, free. So tell me, was the real villain the Hoa Karen who thought her clipboard made her God, or the neighbors who cheered her on until the consequences finally hit home? Drop your thoughts below. Who was really wrong here?